The alien marketplace was alive with sound and color. Stalls lined with strange glowing fruits, metals that shimmered like water, and fabrics that moved as if breathing. Traders from dozens of worlds bargained in loud voices, their words mixing into a chaotic hum somewhere in the crowd. A human named Ethan Cole moved slowly, his brown jacket brushing against the edges of alien fabrics. He kept his head low, trying to blend in. But humans were rare here, and every few seconds curious eyes followed him. Ethan wasn't looking for trouble. He was only here for spare parts for his ship. But trouble had a way of finding him, and it started with something he could not even see his own scent. Lyraya stood near a stall selling crystal flowers. Her silver skin reflected the pale lights of the station, and her long, dark hair-framed eyes the color of deep, violet space. She was not shopping. She was hiding every few seconds. Her gaze darted to the far end of the market where shadowy figures lingered. She had been running for days, but her body was tired. Then she smelled it. It was faint at first. Something warm and strange in the cold metallic air. Her breathing changed. Her heart gave a hard thump. The scent wrapped around her senses like invisible hands. Pulling her attention toward its source, she turned on, her eyes locked on Ethan. The moment their gazes met, something inside her shifted. It was as if her very blood had woken up. Heat rushed through her body. Her fingers trembled, and her knees felt weak. She tried to look away, but her body refused to obey. Ethan noticed her stare. He didn't recognize her species, but he saw the way she swayed, almost losing her balance. Before he could think, he stepped forward, closing the distance between them. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice low. She opened her mouth, but only a shaky breath escaped. Then her legs gave out, and she began to fall. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. His hands gripped her shoulders firmly. The scent was stronger now for her, close enough that it filled her lungs completely. It made her head spin, her heart pound. She felt her skin warming under his touch, around them. A few nearby traders stopped and whispered, their eyes wide. Some looked frightened, others almost hungry. Human, one muttered under his breath. "Keep away from her before you trigger it completely." Ethan frowned. Trigger what? But no one answered. They just turned and quickly walked away. Lyraya's lips trembled as she tried to speak. Her voice was barely a whisper. "What? What did you just do to me?" "I didn't do anything," Ethan said, his confusion growing. He helped her to a bench near the edge of the market. "You look like you're about to faint. Do you need a medic?" She shook her head quickly. "No. Not here." She glanced over her shoulder, and Ethan followed her gaze. The shadowy figures at the far end of the market had started moving toward them. "Friends of yours?" Ethan asked. Her eyes widened. "No, we have to go." Now, she stood, or rather tried to. But her legs were still unsteady. Ethan wrapped an arm around her to keep her upright. As they moved, she kept her head low, whispering, "They will use this against me if they find out. I can't let them use..." "What?" Ethan asked again, but she didn't answer. Instead, she pulled him toward a narrow alley between two tall metal stalls. The sounds of the market faded behind them, replaced by the echo of hurried footsteps. The figures were following, their pace quickening. "Listen," Ethan said, trying to keep his voice steady. "If you're in trouble, I can help you, but I need to know what's going on." She stopped just for a moment, breathing heavily. Her silver skin seemed to glow faintly under the dim lights. Her eyes met his, and there was fear in them, but also something else. Something almost desperate. "You don't understand," she said softly. "My kind. We react to certain scents only once in a lifetime. It changes everything about us. It's permanent." Ethan's brow furrowed. "And my scent? It's the only one," she said, almost choking on the words before Ethan could respond. The shadows behind them moved closer. A low mechanical voice echoed through the alley. Target located. Prepare for capture. Laria's grip tightened on Ethan's arm. If they find me now, I'll never be free again. The tension in her voice made Ethan's decision for him. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew one thing: he wasn't about to hand her over. He glanced around and spotted a narrow metal ladder leading up to a cargo platform. This way, he said, pulling her toward it as they climbed. The sound of boots on metal grew louder below. The air smelled faintly of ozone from the station's power grid, mixed with the strange, warm scent that seemed to be the center of all this. When they reached the top, Laria's breathing was still uneven. Her glowing skin pulsed softly in the dim light. She leaned close and whispered, "Hot. You have no idea what you've started." Human? Ethan stared at her, then at the approaching figures below, and in that moment he realized this was only the beginning. Asterisk. The cargo platform was narrow and cold, the metal floor vibrating with the hum of the station's engines. Ethan kept his grip on Laria's arm as she steadied herself. Her skin still shimmered faintly, her violet eyes darting to every shadow as if danger might leap out at any second. Down below, the figures moved through the alley, scanning the walls with strange devices. One of them tilted its head upward, a red sensor light flickering over its faceplate. Ethan felt a sharp pull in his gut. Time was running out. "We have to move," he whispered. Laria nodded but didn't answer. Her breathing was uneven, and a fine sheen of sweat coated her forehead. She looked both afraid and overwhelmed. Ethan led her toward a maintenance hatch at the far end of the platform. It was half hidden behind a stack of old cargo crates. He crouched, pulling at the handle until it creaked open. The smell of dust and machine oil drifted out. "Inside," he said, but Laria didn't move right away. She held the edge of the hatch and stared at him. "You shouldn't be near me," she whispered, her voice almost breaking. Ethan frowned. "Why?" Her gaze locked on his. "Because my body is changing." Her hand pressed lightly against her chest, as if she could feel the transformation happening beneath her skin. "It started the moment you came close, and it's getting stronger every second." Ethan shook his head. "Changing how?" She glanced away, shame flickering in her eyes. "My species bonds through scent. It's rare, almost impossible. The reaction, it's permanent. My body is preparing for it, and once it's complete, I won't be able to stay away from you. I'll need you to survive." Ethan was silent for a moment. The idea sounded like something out of an old spacer's myth. "So you're saying my smell is doing this to you?" "Yes," she said softly. "And if those men catch us now, they'll know exactly what's happening. And they'll use it. Humans are already valuable to them, but one whose scent can trigger my kind. They'll never let you go either." That last part hit him harder than he expected. He had only meant to help a stranger, but now he was tangled in something far bigger. The sound of metal boots on the ladder snapped him back to reality. "In, now?" he said firmly, helping her into the hatch. He followed, pulling it shut behind them. Darkness swallowed them until a dim emergency light flickered on, casting long shadows on the narrow maintenance tunnel. The space was tight, forcing them to move close together. The air here was warmer, and the scent between them seemed even more intense. Ethan didn't notice it, but Laria's hand shook as she crawled forward. Her heartbeat was fast, her skin warmer than before. Halfway through the tunnel, she stopped suddenly, pressing her forehead against the wall. "It's too strong," she whispered. "I can't." "Think." Ethan put a hand on her shoulder. "We just need to get out of here. You can make it." She nodded, but her voice trembled. "I can feel it, my senses sharpening, my skin changing. The bond cycle has begun. If it reaches the final stage while we're trapped here, I won't be able to control what happens next." Before Ethan could ask more, a low thud echoed behind them. Someone had opened the hatch they'd used. The sound of crawling echoed up the tunnel. Lyraya's eyes widened. "They're coming." "Go," Ethan urged, pushing her forward. They scrambled through the tight passage until they reached a vertical shaft with a ladder. Above, faint light spilled from a grated opening. Ethan climbed first. Pulling himself up quickly, he then reached down to help Lyraya. Her hands gripped his wrists tightly the moment their skin touched. A shiver ran through her body, and she inhaled sharply. The bond reaction surged, her skin markings brightened, swirling with luminous patterns. "What is it?" he asked. Her voice was breathless. "It's exhilarating." They pulled themselves out into an abandoned service room. Old machinery sat in the corners, dust thick on the floor. For a moment, it felt safe, but Lyraya leaned against the wall, her breathing heavy. "We can't stay here long," she said, the reactions almost at the second stage. "My body will adapt to you completely soon. And they will be able to track it." Ethan blinked. "Track it?" She nodded. "When the bond locks in, my body will give off an energy signature, how my kind find each other. They'll see it from across the station." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "So, what's the plan? You can't be near me. But you can't survive without me either." Her lips curved into a faint, bitter smile. Exactly. Before Ethan could reply, a faint, metallic screech filled the room. One of the old ventilation grates bent inward, and a small spherical drone floated in, its red lens locking on them. Lyraya's eyes went wide. "They found us." The drone's voice crackled in a cold, mechanical tone. "Subject confirmed. Human match identified. Extraction team en route." Ethan grabbed the nearest thing he could. Heavy rusted pipe hand swung at the drone. Sparks flew as it hit the floor, but the damage was done. The signal was already sent. Lyraya stepped closer to him, her voice urgent. "If they take me, it's over. If they take you, I will follow, no matter where." Ethan met her gaze, feeling the truth in her words, and for the first time, he wondered if running would even be enough. The service room door shook under the pounding of metal boots. Ethan's grip tightened around the rusted pipe. Lyaya's skin glowed faintly in the dim light. Her violet eyes locked on the single exit. "They're here," she whispered, her voice trembling but steady enough to move without another word. Ethan grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a side door, barely big enough for one person at a time. It led into a cramped corridor lined with old wiring and broken lights. The air smelled faintly of smoke and engine grease. The sound of the main door bursting open echoed behind them. Shouts in a strange alien tongue followed. Heavy footsteps clanging against the metal floor. "They're faster than I thought," Ethan muttered. "They know every shortcut," Lyraya replied, glancing back. "We have to lose them in the lower decks." They ran, their footsteps pounding in unison. The corridor split into two paths ahead. Without hesitation, Lyraya pointed left. "That way's a maintenance shaft that leads to the cargo docks." Ethan followed her lead, but his eyes kept darting behind them. The hunters were getting closer. One of them appeared in the distance, raising a weapon that hummed with dangerous energy. "Down!" Ethan shouted, pulling Lyraya behind a rusted support beam. A bolt of blue plasma tore through the wall where they had been seconds earlier. Sparks rained down around them. They moved again, this time ducking into an open vent large enough to crawl through. The metal groaned under their weight, and the air inside was hot and stale. Every movement echoed like a drumbeat, making it impossible to hide their location for long. Lyraya's breathing grew heavier, her body reacting more with each passing minute. Her glowing markings brightened, casting strange shadows along the vent walls. "Are you going to be all right?" Ethan asked quietly as they crawled. "I don't know," she admitted. "The reaction is moving faster because of the stress. My senses are sharpening, but it's overwhelming. Just focus on getting to the docks," he said. "We'll figure the rest out later." They reached a vent opening overlooking a massive cargo bay. Dozens of ships were docked here, from sleek private vessels to rusting freight haulers. The hum of engines filled the air, along with the shouts of workers. And the distant hiss of steam vents. Ethan scanned the area. "Which one's yours?" "I don't have one," Lariah said, her voice quiet but firm. "I was running when I got here. I've been hiding ever since." Ethan sighed. "Then we'll have to use mine." "Where?" she asked. "Dock 42, he said. "But we'll have to cross half the bay to get there." Before they could move, the vent behind them rattled. The metallic clang of someone crawling after them filled the air. Ethan kicked the grate loose, and they dropped into the bay below. Landing behind a stack of cargo crates, the scent hit Lariah again stronger, now that she was so close to him in the heat of the chase. Her pulse thundered in her ears, making it harder to think, but she pushed the reaction down, focusing on survival from behind the crates. Ethan spotted a path along the shadows of the bay wall. They moved quickly, weaving between shipping containers, keeping low to avoid the patrol drones that floated above. One of the drones suddenly dipped down, its red scanner sweeping across the floor. Lariah froze, holding her breath. The beam of light passed inches from her face. Ethan grabbed a loose tarp and threw it over them. The scanner moved on the moment it was gone. They ran again, but just as they neared Dock 42, a group of armed bounty hunters stepped into their path. Their leader, a tall alien with bronze armor and sharp ridges along his jaw, smiled coldly. "Going somewhere, human," he said in a deep voice. His gaze slid to Lariah, and his smile widened. "And you're worth more than I imagined." Ethan stepped in front of her, gripping the pipe tighter. "You're not taking her?" The bounty hunter laughed. "You think you can stop us? Do you even know what she is?" "I don't care," Ethan said, his voice sharp. "She's with me." The hunters moved forward, weapons raised. Before the standoff could explode, a loud crash erupted behind them. A massive cargo loader towering machine with heavy steel arms smashed into the dock. Its operator shouted angrily at the hunters, distracting them just long enough for Ethan to pull Lariah into a side passage. They sprinted down the narrow hallway, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them. Lariah's legs burned, her heart raced, and she could feel the bond reaction pushing her body into a state she had never experienced before. At the end of the passage, they burst through a service door into the final stretch of the docking area. Ethan's ship, a small but sturdy freighter, waited just ahead. But between them and the ship was a sealed blast gate. The red warning lights flashed, and the control panel beside it showed a security lock. Ethan cursed under his breath. "It's locked." "How long to open it?" Lariah asked. "Too long if they catch us," he replied, already pulling tools from his belt. The sound of heavy boots drew closer, echoing through the metal halls. Lariah stepped closer to him, her voice low, but steady. "If they get here before you open that gate, I will fight." Ethan glanced at her, seeing the fierce determination in her glowing eyes. He didn't know whether she could win, but he knew she wouldn't back down. And as the gate began to hiss and unlock, the shadows of their pursuers appeared at the far end of the dock, closing in fast. The blast gate finally hissed open, just wide enough for Ethan to shove Lariah through. He followed quickly, slamming the emergency lever down to seal it again. The heavy door clanged shut, cutting off the shouts of the bounty hunters on the other side. The space they stumbled into was dim and cramped. A faint green light flickered from a single overhead fixture, casting long shadows over the walls. The air was warmer here, heavy with the smell of old machinery and recycled oxygen. Ethan took a moment to catch his breath, but Lariah leaned against the wall, her chest rising and falling too fast. Her skin shimmered brighter now, the patterns across her arms shifting and glowing like liquid silver. "You're not okay," Ethan said, stepping toward her. Her eyes met his, filled with both fear and something else he couldn't name. "It's getting worse," she whispered, The reaction is moving faster. My body's changing whether I want it to or not. He frowned. And that's bad? Her lips parted, but she didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached up and pressed her fingers to her temples. If it completes, I'll be bound. To you, I'll feel your presence no matter where you are. I'll need to stay close or it will hurt me. Maybe kill me. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. So staying alive means staying together? She nodded slowly, but the more I'm near you, the faster it happens. They stood there for a moment in the silence, the tension thick between them. Then the metal walls around them groaned with a deep vibration. The sound of boots and muffled voices filtered through the air vents. There. Searching the maintenance ring, Ethan said, his eyes scanning the room for another way out. Lyraya's gaze followed his. But there was only one exit, a narrow duct high on the wall, just large enough for one person to crawl through at a time. The rest of the space was closed off, making it feel like a cage. Ethan dragged a metal crate under the vent and climbed up. He reached for the cover, but it was bolted shut. Great, he muttered. It's sealed from the inside. As he tried to work the bolts loose with his knife, Lyraya stepped closer. Her movements were slow, almost hesitant. She was breathing faster again. Ethan, she said softly, you need to know. The reaction isn't just physical. He glanced over his shoulder. What do you mean? Her fingers curled slightly at her sides. It changes how I think, how I feel. It makes me want to be close, to touch, to connect. I'm fighting. It's like trying to stop a tide with my hands. Ethan looked at her for a moment, understanding, dawning. This wasn't just about danger anymore. It was about something pulling her toward him against her will. The vent cover, finally, came loose with a sharp creak. He caught it before it hit the floor and lowered it quietly. All right, let's go. But before they could climb in, a loud thud shook the door behind them. The locking mechanism sparked. A deep voice growled from the other side. We know you're in there, human. They've found us, Ethan said, urgency sharpening his tone. Lyraya stepped closer, her glow brighter than ever now. If they break through, I'll fight, she said. I can't be captured. You can't either. Another loud crash hit the door. The metal bent inward slightly. Ethan climbed into the vent and reached down for her. Come on, no arguments. She grabbed his wrist, and the moment their skin touched, her entire body shuddered. She inhaled sharply, eyes closing for a heartbeat. Ethan could feel the faint vibration through her hand like a hum in her skin. Lyraya, he said, his voice low. Stay with me. She climbed up, squeezing into the vent beside him. It was so narrow that their arms brushed with every movement. The heat from her skin was intense, almost burning. They crawled forward as the sound of the door breaking open echoed behind them. Shouts filled the room they had just left. A beam of light cut into the vent behind them, followed by the metallic click of a weapon charging. Faster, Ethan urged. They reached a junction in the duct. One path sloped upward, toward the docking area, the other downward into unknown darkness. Lyraya pointed toward the lower path. That way leads to the old storage bays. Ethan hesitated, and from there, we hide until they stop looking, she said, her voice firm. It's the only chance we have. The duct walls rattled as someone crawled in behind them. Ethan didn't think he went down the lower path, sliding on the smooth metal. Lyraya followed close. They landed in a dark chamber filled with strange glowing pods. Their faint blue light cast eerie shadows. The air was colder here. What is this place? Ethan asked. Looking around, Lyraya's face paled, her glow dimming. These are stasis pods, she said quietly, females of my kind. Taken for breeding programs. Ethan's stomach turned. And you escaped from this? She nodded, eyes locked on the pods. But if they catch me now, I'll end up in one again. A noise from above pulled their attention. The hunters We're in the vent, getting closer. Ethan looked at her. Then, at the only other exit in the room, we have to move now. Lyraya's jaw tightened. Then, let's go. The cold air in the storage chamber seemed heavier than the rest of the station. The blue glow from the stasis pods reflected in Lyraya's eyes. Giving them an otherworldly shine, Ethan could see faint shapes inside the pod's slender figures. Their silver skin barely visible through the frost. He swallowed hard. They're alive, yes. Lyraya whispered, her voice heavy with grief. But only just. Their bodies are in deep suspension. They've been like this for years, waiting to be used. Ethan's stomach twisted. Used for what? She turned to him, her expression a mix of anger and pain. Breeding programs. My kind is rare, very rare. We were once a free and proud people. But because of our biology, we became targets. Our bond cycle makes us valuable. It only happens once in our lifetime, and if the match is right, it guarantees strong offspring to the wrong people. We're nothing more than a way to make profit. Ethan glanced at the pods again, understanding more than he wanted to. And these women. They didn't choose this. Lyraya shook her head slowly. No, they were taken. One by one, some from their homes, some while traveling, some while already bonded. They were forced into separation until the bond weakened enough to break. Her voice trembled at the last words, that kind of pain. It can kill us. Ethan took a step closer, lowering his voice. You were one of them. Lyraya hesitated, her gaze falling to the floor. Almost, I was caught when I was younger. They kept me in a holding facility for months, running tests. Measuring everything, waiting for the right scent to appear. I escaped before they could sell me. But I've been running ever since. She looked up at him then, her violet eyes bright with something sharp. And now, you've triggered it. My bond cycle started the moment I smelled you. That's why they're after me. And now, they'll be after you too. Ethan exhaled slowly. So what happens if the bond finishes? Lyraya's expression shifted, a mix of fear and something softer. If it completes, I'll be tied to you for life. I'll feel your emotions, your presence. I'll know where you are, even if you're light years away, and if you die. I will too. Ethan's jaw tightened. That sounds less like a choice and more like a trap. For you, maybe, she said quietly. For me, it's survival. If the bond doesn't finish after starting, it tears us apart inside. Our bodies fail, piece by piece, before Ethan could respond. A loud clang echoed from the vent above. The hunters were getting closer. The sound of metal scraping and voices calling orders filled the chamber. Ethan scanned the room quickly, spotting a narrow passage on the far wall, partially hidden behind a row of empty pods. That way, he said. Lyraya followed him, her steps silent despite the tension in her movements. The passage was tight and dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of her skin. Ethan moved ahead, listening for any sound of movement halfway through the passage. Lyraya's breathing grew shallow again. Ethan, she whispered. It's getting stronger, the bond reaction. It's moving to the next stage. What does that mean? He asked without stopping. It means soon. I won't be able to hide it, she said. My glow will get brighter, and anyone nearby will sense it. If they find us then, there'll be no way to deny what's happening. They emerged from the passage into a small maintenance bay. The walls were lined with tools, broken machinery, and a single door leading deeper into the station. Ethan closed it behind them and wedged a heavy metal bar into the handle. You need rest, he said, firmly. You can't keep running like this, Lyraya. Shook her head. Rest won't help, not unless I'm far from you. Or close enough to complete it. Ethan stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. You're saying I either leave you or bond with you. She nodded, her voice almost a whisper. There's no middle path before Ethan could. answer. The sound of footsteps echoed outside the door, slow and deliberate. A deep voice called out, "Open the door, human. You can't hide her forever." Ethan glanced around the room, spotting a narrow ceiling hatch. He pointed upward. "We're going up," Lyraya hesitated. "Where does it lead?" "Doesn't matter," Ethan replied. "Anywhere but here." He pulled himself up first, then reached down for her. Their hands met again, and the same electric hum rushed through her body. Her glowing markings pulsed brighter. She let out a sharp breath but climbed up without complaint. They found themselves in another cramped ventilation tunnel. This one sloped upward toward the upper decks, but the air here was colder and carried the faint scent of ozone. "Once we reach the top," Ethan said quietly, "we find my ship, we get off this station." Lyraya nodded, though her voice was tight. "If we make it. The reaction will be complete before we land." Ethan didn't answer. His only thought was to get her out alive, even if that meant stepping into something he didn't fully understand. Behind them, the sound of the door breaking filled the maintenance bay. The hunters were inside, and now they knew exactly which way their prey had gone. The ventilation tunnel rattled with each heavy step of the hunters below. Ethan moved quickly, his hands gripping the cold metal edges. Lyraya followed close behind, her breath uneven. The glow of her skin now bright enough to light the narrow path. "They'll see your glow," Ethan whispered, glancing back at her. "I can't stop it anymore," she said, her voice shaking. "The second stage is almost over. The final stage is coming." Whether we want it or not, they reached a vertical section of the vent. Ethan climbed first, pulling himself upward toward a faint light. Lyraya followed, her fingers gripping the metal rungs tightly, but halfway up, the sound of metal being torn open echoed below them. "There in the vents," Ethan said, his voice urgent, "Move faster." By the time they pulled themselves out, they were inside a large industrial chamber. The floor was lined with massive fuel tanks, and the smell of engine coolant hung heavy in the air. Ethan scanned the room. There, he pointed toward a side door marked with a faded maintenance symbol. That should lead toward the hangars. But as they moved, a loud crash shook the chamber. The far wall buckled, and 3 armed hunters stepped through, their weapons aimed directly at them. The leader's voice was deep and cold. "Step away from her, human." Ethan stepped in front of Lyraya. "Not happening. You don't understand." The leader said, "She's in the middle of the bond cycle. If you complete it, she will be useless to us, only good for you. But if we take her now, she can serve a greater purpose." Lyraya's voice was sharp. "You mean sold to the highest bidder? Don't pretend it's anything else." The leader smirked. "It's more than you deserve. Run away." Ethan's hand tightened on the metal wrench he had grabbed earlier. His eyes scanned for cover, but there was none. The hunters were already advancing, weapons humming with energy. Then Lyraya stumbled, her knees hitting the floor. She gasped, clutching her chest. "It's happening," she whispered. "The final stage. I can't hold it back anymore." Ethan knelt beside her. "What do?" "I do." Her eyes locked on his, glowing brighter than he had ever seen. "Stay close. Don't let go of me. If I die now, it's because the bond didn't finish." The leader raised his weapon. "Then it ends for both of you." The shot never landed. Ethan lunged forward, knocking the barrel aside with the wrench. The blast struck a fuel tank, sending a wave of heat across the room. Another hunter fired, but Ethan rolled to the side. Pulling Lyraya with him, she clung to him, her breathing ragged, her skin hot to the touch. The bond reaction surged like an invisible current between them. He could feel it like a pulse, steady and powerful, racing through both their bodies. Ethan didn't understand how, but instinct told him what to do. He pulled her close, his arms wrapping around her. The glow around her intensified until it lit the entire room in silver light. The hunters shielded their eyes, shouting in confusion. "Liraya's?" Voice trembled. "It's locking." "I can feel it. Just a little longer." The light pulsed again, and Ethan felt something deep in his chest, as if her heartbeat had merged with his own. The air seemed to vibrate around them. The hunters tried to push forward, but the force from the glow shoved them back. Finally, Liraya's body relaxed. The glow dimmed slightly, but her violet eyes stayed locked on his. "It's done," she whispered. "We're bound now. I won't survive without you." Ethan stood, helping her to her feet. The hunters, still recovering from the light, raised their weapons again. But Liraya's glow flared once more, this time controlled. Her movements were faster, sharper. She moved with Ethan as if they had trained together for years. One hunter rushed forward, but Liraya spun to the side. Her hand striking his weapon arm, the weapon flew across the room. Ethan swung his wrench at another. Knocking him into the wall, the leader growled, stepping back toward the breach in the wall. "This isn't over, human. You've just made yourself a target across every system." Ethan didn't take his eyes off him. "Get used to disappointment." The leader retreated, dragging his injured men with him. Their voices faded as they disappeared into the shadows. The room fell silent. Except for the faint hum of the fuel tanks, Ethan looked at Liraya. "You all right?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, stronger than I've ever been, but it comes with a price if you're ever taken from me. I'll follow, no matter the danger." Ethan took a breath. "Then we make sure that doesn't happen." Liraya's lips curved into a faint smile. "Then we run." He pointed toward the side door again. Straight to the ship. No more detours. They moved quickly, the weight of what had just happened settling in. The bond was complete. There was no going back. Now, and somewhere deep down, Ethan knew that the danger was only beginning. The side door groaned as Ethan pushed it open. A cold draft swept in, carrying the sharp metallic scent of the docking bays. Somewhere beyond the echoing corridors was his ship Freedom. If they could reach it in time, Liraya stayed close. Her steps light but purposeful. Her glow had dimmed to a softer silver now, controlled but still bright enough to catch the light on the walls. The bond was complete, and Ethan could feel it in ways he couldn't explain. He didn't just hear her footsteps, he felt them, like faint ripples through his own body. They moved through a maze of cargo crates and fueling stations. Keeping low, the hum of engines was louder here, mingled with the shouts of workers and the metallic clang of loading equipment. "Dock 42 is ahead," Ethan whispered, nodding toward a wide corridor. Before they could step through, a loud alarm blared. Red lights flashed along the walls, and an automated voice echoed through the bay. "Security alert, human target and bonded asset confirmed. All exits sealed." Liraya's jaw tightened. "They've locked down the hangars." Ethan cursed under his breath, scanning the area. "We'll have to override the controls manually. Can you cover me while I work?" She gave a sharp nod. "I'll sense them before they get close." They sprinted toward the nearest control panel. Ethan knelt and began pulling open the access plate. Sparks leaped as he rewired the circuits. Liraya stood guard, her eyes scanning every shadow. Through the bond, Ethan felt her tension before she spoke. "They're coming," she warned. "3 of them, fast. By me 30 seconds, Ethan said, not looking up. The first hunter appeared from behind a cargo lift. Weapon raised, Liraya's glow flared. She moved in a blur, closing the distance before he could fire. Her palm struck his chest, sending him crashing into a crate with a hollow thud. 2 more followed, but they hesitated when they saw her eyes glowing like molten violet. One tried to flank her, but she sidestepped and swept his legs from under him. The third aimed at Ethan. But before he could shoot, Liraya hurled the fallen hunter's weapon. Knocking the blaster from his hands, Ethan's fingers worked fast, bypassing the lock and forcing the system into a manual override. Got it? He said, pressing the final sequence. The docking gate hissed as its massive doors began to slide open, revealing the sleek form of his ship beyond. Move! He shouted. They ran together, but more footsteps echoed from the other side of the bay. A full squad of armed enforcers was closing in. Blaster fire lit up the air around them, sparks bursting from the crates they passed. Ethan yanked the ship's ramp control, and it dropped with a metallic clang. Liraya was already halfway up when a shot rang out. Ethan felt the heat pass just inches from his back. He dove inside, slamming the ramp controls as soon as they were aboard. The engines roared to life, the vibrations running up through the deck plates. "Strap in," Ethan called, sliding into the pilot's chair. Liraya took the seat beside him, her gaze fixed on the hangar doors the moment the ship lifted off the deck. The enforcers opened fire. Energy blasts pounded against the hull, warning alarms blaring in the cockpit. Ethan gritted his teeth, pushing the throttle forward. The ship shot toward the narrow opening between the hangar doors. But a security shield snapped into place, a shimmering blue wall blocking their escape. "They're sealing us in," Liraya said, her voice tense. "Not for long," Ethan replied. His fingers flew over the controls, diverting all available power to the forward shields and engines. "Hold on." The ship slammed into the shield, sparks cascading over the cockpit windows. For a moment, it felt like they would bounce back, but the shield flickered, then shattered into fading fragments of light. They burst through into open space, the stars stretching out in every direction. The station's smaller patrol craft immediately launched in pursuit, their engines glowing bright as they closed in. Ethan, Liraya said quietly, "They won't stop hunting us now." He glanced at her. "Then we don't give them the chance to catch us." She held his gaze, her expression softer now. "You understand what this means, don't you? The bond? It's forever. I'll feel everything you feel. I'll be with you no matter where we go." He nodded slowly. "And I'll be with you for a long moment." They just looked at each other as the stars wheeled past. The chase was still on. The danger far from over, but in the quiet hum of the ship's cabin, there was a strange calm between them. "Where to?" she asked. "Somewhere they can't find us," Ethan replied, pulling the throttle back and locking in a course. "Ah." The stars stretched into long lines as the ship jumped to faster than light speed. Araya leaned back in her seat, a faint smile touching her lips. "Then this is our beginning." Ethan returned the smile. "Our beginning," and with that, they disappeared into the deep, endless black of space, leaving the chaos of the station and the life they had known far behind.